Hello, dear friends. Today we continue our acquaintance with the memoirs of Waffen SS Major General Kurt Meyer. Don't forget to rate the video and leave your opinion about this material. Well, let's begin. The Balkans. During World War I, the Germans had a tough time on the southeastern flank. In the fall of 1916, at the very moment when we were suffering the bloodiest losses in the west, at the Somme in the east, against General Brusilov's Russian southwestern front, and in the south, near Isonzo, the Allied powers completed their encirclement of Germany as a result of Romania's entry into the war on their side. For almost 3 long years, the Central Powers fought the Allied armies in the impassable mountains of Macedonia, the Salonika front. But it was only in September 1918 that the Allied coalition forces, French, Serbs, and British, under the command of General Franchet d'Espèrey, managed to break through the German and Bulgarian defenses. With 29 Allied divisions, he reached the Danube, thereby sealing the fate of our allies, Bulgaria, which signed an armistice on September 29, 1918, Turkey on September 30th, and Austria-Hungary on November 3rd. What role the Balkans would play in this war in the spring of 1941 was anyone's guess. What was clear was that Winston Churchill was once again having a decisive influence on British strategy. He had organized the landings at Gallipoli in 1915 and then at Salonika. In the spring of 1941, London kept expeditionary forces on standby in the Mediterranean and then landed them in Greece. In mid-February, British Foreign Minister Eden and General John Dill, Chief of the British General Staff, were in Athens to discuss the deployment of British troops in Greece. In January, the first units of the German Regular Army entered Romania. These soldiers, said to be from training units, were warmly welcomed by the population. In early February, we also received orders to march. No one knew where this campaign would lead. We crossed the Rhine near Strasbourg and then proceeded through the amazingly beautiful landscapes of southern Germany to Bohemia. Passing Prague, we headed straight south, and the next morning saw the outlines of Budapest. Continuing our journey through the Hungarian steppes, our train approached the Romanian border. We got to know the Transylvanian Germans, mainly Saxons, and their beautiful country near the Hungarian-Romanian border, and were met with extraordinary hospitality and cordiality in Brașov, Hermannstadt, and many other outstanding towns and villages in the Carpathians, which had long been inhabited by Germans. Our troops were stationed in the Campalung area. This once quiet, narrow-gauge railway station was completely transformed. There was bustling activity everywhere. In the very first hour of our march along the road, an incident occurred that would have repercussions in the future. A Romanian lieutenant colonel, who was complaining about the poor roads, asked me to pull his small car out of the mud. A woman was sitting in the car, obviously in great pain. I quickly forgot about this incident. However, in 1943, in Dobritz-Krumpnitz, a Romanian colonel approached me and greeted me warmly. He kept telling his comrades that I was the savior of his wife and son. It took me quite a while to remember what he meant. The Romanian said that when the car got stuck, his wife was on her way to the maternity hospital and was about to give birth. They arrived at the hospital just in time, and his wife gave birth to a son. Naturally, we celebrated our meeting in Germany. After several weeks of standing in Campalung, we marched south to Bulgaria along muddy roads with deep ruts. The tank tracks sank deeper and deeper into the ground, and repair crews worked continuously. Bare, wide spaces with almost no hills or forest areas could be seen on both sides of the road. From time to time we passed another poor village, where there was nothing but a well and a few dirty huts deeply embedded in the ground, with several windows open to the wind. Then one morning we saw the wide, earthy brown ribbon of the slowly flowing Danube. South of the Danube, the mountains of Bulgaria rose up through the misty haze. The sun beat down mercilessly as we crossed the bridge built by our military engineers into Bulgaria. The Bulgarians welcomed us joyfully. Many memories of World War I were awakened, and Bulgarian peasants proudly showed us their German medals. The march across the infamous road to the Skopje Pass was unforgettable. The dangerous, sharp turns of the narrow road were nevertheless overcome rapidly under the supervision of repair crews. When nothing else helped on the ascents, the Bulgarians lent us their draft oxen. Long columns rolled steadily southward, past Sofia into the Strumica Valley. There was a danger of crashing into the sharp rock ledges on the road. Drivers struggled to navigate their heavy vehicles around the bends of narrow mountain roads covered with a thick layer of dust. These roads, with their potholes, steep ascents and descents, and bends that demanded the utmost from vehicles and drivers, had not seen such a huge amount of traffic for many days. A 20-kilometer traffic jam formed in the Strumica Valley, which became a particularly serious obstacle to the movement of our troops. Sappers and military engineers built a new road, constantly leveling it, blowing up rocks and erecting new bridges. The danger of delaying the advance of the troops soon passed. The columns quickly crossed the valley and dispersed into several valleys, high mountain ranges, hidden canyons, and wide valleys, effectively concealed the huge military formations. Large quantities of fuel, ammunition, and other supplies were stored along the roads. The march of convergence was complete. The assault companies were ready. Meanwhile, anti-German circles, incited by the British, seized power in Belgrade, with the traditional pro-Russian sentiments in Serbia playing a special role. During the uprising on the night of March 26th to 27th, the pro-German government was overthrown, and Prince Regent Paul was forced to leave the country. As a result, the situation in the Balkans changed dramatically. The new government renounced its alliance with Germany, and on April 5, 1941, signed a treaty of friendship and non-aggression with the Soviet Union. After the coup in Belgrade, Hitler had already decided to eliminate the Yugoslav threat to our flank. In addition to General von Kleist's 1st Panzer Group, operating from Bulgaria, and General von Weich's 2nd Army, concentrated in former Austria, which were to break through to Belgrade and occupy northern Yugoslavia, the 12th Army, under the command of Field Marshal List, also from Bulgaria, struck southern Yugoslavia, Skopje, and then advanced into Greece. The 12th Army had 16 divisions at its disposal, plus the Great Germany Infantry Regiment and our SS Leibstandarte Brigade. Hitler ordered the attack on Yugoslavia on April 6th, following the conclusion of a non-aggression and friendship pact between the Soviet Union and Yugoslavia on April 5th. The hot spring day was coming to an end. The heat in the Strumica Valley was almost unbearable. Due to the events in Yugoslavia, we advanced to the northern part of the valley. In Kustendil, located 20 kilometers from the Bulgarian-Yugoslav border, the 9th Tank Division had already reached this border town and had orders to advance on Skopje and, if possible, capture this important junction city. We were to follow the 9th Tank Division almost to Skopje itself, then turn south and proceed to the Greek border via Prilep and Bitola. My reinforced battalion assembled in the square in front of me. Darkness enveloped us as I briefed my comrades on the most important details of our upcoming operation. They listened silently as I explained the task of our advance guard and pointed out the problems we could expect. I also felt it necessary to remind them of the fierce battles our fathers had fought in World War I in the mountains of Macedonia, and during the capture of Monastir, a city for which a sea of blood had been shed, and which was now one of our first targets. We wanted to take it quickly and by surprise. As I spoke, I felt for the first time the boundless trust that bound me to my soldiers. I could have led them into hell, and they would have followed me. The night was damp and warm. There was little talk, and most of the soldiers smoked. Everyone wanted to be alone with their thoughts before the operation. The silvery moon cast a dim light on the soldiers as they walked bent over next to their motorcycles. The steep, bare slope of the mountain rose ominously, opening up before us as soon as dawn broke. The white road snaked steeply up the slope, and we knew that firing points and dragon's teeth awaited us at the Skopje Pass. The vanguard of the 9th Tank Division set out at dawn, moving westward across the natural border of a low mountain range. Beyond the Skopje Pass, it encountered Yugoslav fortifications. Our heavy artillery opened fire. 88mm anti-aircraft guns and heavy anti-tank guns destroyed the enemy's firing points. In a matter of minutes, they were reduced to smoking ruins. It all seemed somehow unreal. Far to the east, a blood-red sun was rising, and in the valleys the morning fog mixed with thick clouds of dust. Rounds of red tracer bullets from our machine guns flew down into the valley from the pass we had captured. Suddenly, enemy planes appeared. Flying low over the mountains, they circled over the road in the valley and attacked Kustendil. As bombs fell on the city, its streets and roads in the surrounding area were filled with columns of our troops. Thank God the losses were minor. But unfortunately, the commander of the 2nd Battalion of our SS Motorized Infantry Brigade, Leibstandarte Adolf Hitler, was seriously wounded. Moving in columns, we got closer and closer to the border, and finally reached it towards evening. The 9th Panzer Division had already broken through the border fortifications and was advancing deep into Yugoslavia. The leading tank unit was advancing on Skopje, firing on the move. We descended from the pass, past destroyed border and road barriers, and skillfully positioned small concrete firing points. We came across numerous prisoners, among whom were many Germans from Banat, who greeted us with loud cheers and shook our hands. The corpses of dead horses, already swollen under the southern sun, lay in the trench. Living horses galloped across the fields or stood indifferently at the edge of the road. The difficult terrain gave way to a slightly different one. There were fewer mountains. The high snow-capped peaks were left behind. We came across our first destroyed tanks and fresh graves near Kumanovo, evidence of the fierce battle for the city. Darkness fell quickly. The darkness of the southern night quickly enveloped the marching column. Soon we were to reach the fork in the road south of Skopje. From Veles and beyond, we were to take on the role of the striking vanguard in the advance south through Prilep and Monastir. We reached the last outposts of the 9th Tank Division shortly after midnight and prepared to enter no man's land. Before the advance guard platoon set out in the vanguard, I once again briefed its soldiers and commanders, informed them of the situation unfolding for us, and wished my comrades in arms all the best. I sent the platoon off into the darkness with the words, "Guys, the night belongs to the good soldier." The motorcycles set off, slowly at first, then faster and faster. It was reminiscent of the Dutch campaign. Soon I discovered that Varjanek had personally taken command and, without further ado, rushed south. But here there were no smooth asphalt roads like in Holland and France. Our advance was hampered by narrow mountain roads and gorges. The road to Prilep climbed steeply. After a short time, the first bullets whistled over our heads. Individual enemy soldiers had taken up positions somewhere in the mountains and were trying to stop our advance. I followed the advance guard. A short command was enough to keep moving. Forward and only forward. Our goal was to capture the territory to the south and take advantage of the enemy's confusion. At the foot of a small hill behind the village, we came under fire again. Armored vehicles provided support to the attacking motorcycle riflemen and fired tracer rounds at the enemy. The motorcycle riflemen combed through the village. Our battalion's first participation in combat operations led to complete confusion among more than 100 Yugoslavs. The enemy officers cursed their guard posts in the mountains. They listened incredulously to our interpreter's explanation that the fire from their posts did not hinder us, and we simply continued moving south. Half an hour later, it was all over. The motorcycle riflemen rushed forward. They were unstoppable. We continued to move forward. In a frantic race along the mountain road and across bridges over ravines, we took the enemy battery by surprise on the march. After a couple of minutes, the excitement subsided. With a clang and a crash, the captured guns fell into the ravine. At dawn, we arrived in Prilep and made contact with the vanguard of the 73rd Infantry Division. The battalion was commanded by Major Stefater, with whom I had studied at retraining courses. Stefater, moving from the east, reached Prilep without significant losses. It looked like it was going to be a hot day. We allowed ourselves a short and much-needed rest. We had advanced far toward the strategically important city of Monastir. At dawn, a light rain began to fall. It mixed with the dust and turned it into gray, sticky mud. We gazed anxiously at the fleeing shadows of the night. The road now led to a plain, with only one high mountain visible on the right. Around the bend, we saw the Cherna River, where we noticed a solid bridge with steel arches. It had not yet been blown up. Several enemy trucks and horse-drawn carts were approaching the bridge. I saw only the bridge. Nothing else interested me. It had to fall into our hands intact and undamaged. 2 armored cars broke away from the marching column and opened fire with their 20mm automatic cannons on the distant approaches to the bridge. Our lead vehicles rushed toward the bridge as if driven by the devil himself. Yugoslavian horse-drawn carts and trucks trying to get away from us collided in their eagerness to outrun each other and created traffic jams. They were only 100 meters away from us. Bullets whistled past us. I could already see the undamaged bridge in my hands, but then, echoing across the entire river valley, there was a deafening explosion. The bridge blew up right before my eyes and collapsed into the water. The enemy's horses, soldiers, and vehicles were thrown into the air along with the bridge and swallowed up by the turbulent waters of the Cherna. A Yugoslav machine gun rattled. At first horrified, then enraged, and finally coldly assessing the situation, I approached the remains of the blown-up bridge. The commander of the 2nd Company of the 1st SS Reconnaissance Unit, Hauptsturmführer Krass, stood next to me. The situation was quickly assessed and a decision was made. The enemy could not be given time to rest. They had to be pursued. We were lucky. The metal structure protruded above the water and could be used as the foundation for a temporary bridge. The Grenadiers quickly prepared temporary positions on the ruins. The sapper units that had arrived built a new crossing as if they were doing it in training. Motorcyclists crossed the river and reconnoitered the road to Monastir. The bridge grew before our eyes, and soon the first heavy armored vehicles crossed the river. The offensive continued. The 2nd Company moved forward again. The railroad ran to the left of the road we were advancing on. Enemy snipers crawled behind its embankment, trying in vain to slow our rapid advance. The armored vehicles simply fired several machine gun bursts at the enemy, who were lying behind and on the embankment. Everyone else looked straight ahead. We wanted to take Monastir on the move. Nothing else mattered. The railroad embankment was getting closer and closer to the highway, crossing it a few hundred meters ahead of us. The advance guard stopped, and the Grenadiers jumped into the ditch on both sides of the road. A house was visible, which was the center of resistance. A 50mm anti-tank gun took up position under enemy fire and fired a couple of shots at the walls. The house exploded with a bang. Only then did I notice that the enemy on the embankment had become more active, emboldened by the halt of our vanguard. A machine gun fired from behind the embankment, showering us with bullets, and leaving us no choice but to accept the challenge. The matter was quickly settled, thanks to fire from armored vehicles. The surviving Yugoslav soldiers fled to the marshy lowlands behind the railway embankment. I was about to jump onto SS Untersturmführer Weil's motorcycle when renewed fire from several Yugoslavs pinned us to the ground again. My tablet was riddled with bullets. Its fragments lay on the edge of the ditch. Enemy bullets pounded the grass, churning up the wet earth around us. A gurgling sound made me look at Weil. He was writhing at the bottom of the ditch, his lower jaw shattered and hanging down. We couldn't afford to get stuck here. We couldn't let the enemy pin us down on the approaches to Monastir and drive us out of these high hills, I shouted to the advance units. The motorcyclists, like acrobats, jumped onto their bikes and raced forward. The advance units drew the rest of the battalion behind them like a magnet. We raced along the slippery road, wet from the rain. It had been raining all day, but the sun was beginning to break through the veil of ragged clouds. The Yugoslavs' resistance was growing. The tracer bullets from their machine guns whistled viciously, piercing through the haystacks that served as cover, turning them into giant torches. Monastir was right in front of us. We could already see the city sprawling among the mountains. On the slope to our right, I saw an enemy battery taking up position. Forward! There was no time to put out the fires. We had to enter the city. We wanted to grab the defenders by the throat. We were mesmerized by the speed. We fired bursts from our machine guns at the enemy on both sides of the road. A half-built roadblock appeared right in front of us. Fire! Bursts from armored vehicles tore through the air, and hand grenades flew into the barricade. Completely confused, the stunned defenders rushed for cover. That's all for today. If you liked the video, please support it with a like and subscribe to the channel. See you all soon.